The question is, can the government or will the government allow the price of these fuels to jump from $5.75 to $7.58, $4.97 to $7.46, from $3.41 to $6.58? That is a huge shock to the economy. And the question that we have to ask ourselves, if we have $767 million available, is subsidizing fuel the way to spend it? Because you may have to borrow that money. To pay this subsidy, the Minister of Finance will have to engage in borrowing, because you may have to borrow that money. To pay this subsidy, the Minister of Finance will have to engage in borrowing. And of course, the ministry tells me that the estimated figures for 2022, with oil price at $100, which is quite possible based on what's going on right now, even if you fall back a bit from 128 or 130, the estimated subsidy, we're looking at $896 million. The levy in the fund on the companies would be $459, and the government subsidy would be $437 million. So what all this means is that the government, through the Ministry of Finance, and the Minister of Finance is working on that right now, will have to take a decision as to how much funding we can find to subsidize, to take some pressure off the population. But the population cannot be insulated completely from oil running at $120, $130, $140 per barrel. So in short, what I'm saying is that do not see the height in oil price as opening up huge possibilities for earnings, because the volumes at which we are producing oil now is not the same volumes we had before when the subsidy was absorbed. Question is, can we find that money to subsidize fuel, to insulate the population from this? That is the question we have to answer. That money is not available. We are not producing volumes of oil to say our earnings on the volume side would be large enough to provide the cash that you will get from the large volume, high price, to put this subsidy. Let me tell you how it comes at the pump. So between 2007 and 2021, our production of gas would have fallen from 4.3 billion in 2010 to 2.7 billion. That's the gas we have to sell. That's what the fields are producing. BP, our largest producer, we were relying on BP to increase its production or maintain its production so we could have kept Train 1 operating. BP came to report that our plans have failed, our fields have failed, and therefore our production will not be able to sustain Train 1 in the way it was being sustained. And we will not be able to provide the gas to get you back anywhere near 4 billion cubic feet. Those are the facts, people of Trinidad and Tobago. And anything else outside of that is wishful thinking or misinformation. What we have to do now as a government, as a people, is to digest this and make serious decisions as to how we manage to cut our suit, to suit this cloth, to ensure that we get the best of what is not the best situation. And of course, when we came in and money virtually ran out, couldn't pay public servants, we had to do something about this, because if this was allowed to continue, the country would have been bankrupt. $16 billion in 36 months. How could we have continued that? But the government that I led had to bite the bullet and begin to reduce and remove the subsidy. And you know how that was received. it was received as though the government wicked, the government bad, and there are certain people who want to march up and down, and the only conversation is how the government bad. Not that the country is heading into outright bankruptcy because the government is spending on an item that is sucking money in this way. The reason why we had to close down the refinery is because as the production level was falling down to this, we had to be buying oil, crude oil, to refine because we weren't producing it. We were buying approximately 120,000 barrels per day. If the refinery was open and operating now, we would have been paying that $128 a barrel for 128,000 barrels per day to keep the refinery going, guaranteed to lose between $7 and $10 a barrel. You get my drift?